Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Rory Excalibur Show. I believe this is episode 4. As promised last time, we're continuing with our visual aid of some Minecraft gameplay for the attention impaired. For today's topic, I wanted to talk about feeling like I'm going crazy. Now, I will be a bit more specific. This has to do more with conflicting ideologies, right? And so, for the longest time, I've been very nihilistic. My whole life, I was raised to always expect the worst outcome, and so I could prepare for whatever may come. And this has snowballed essentially into a life of misery, and a life of misery because I'm trying to lead myself by the truth, right? By what is reality, because the reality of most situations and outcomes is negative. Life is full of just a whole bunch of crap that's not going to work out the way you wanted it to, right? And of course, it's not all bad. Of course, there is good as well, but more often than not, optimism goes dry. It goes unappreciated, or it just leads to more severe disappointment, right? And the reason why I was thinking about this recently is because, as mentioned in the last episode, things have not been going well with me and the person I've, been quote-unquote talking to. And yesterday they blocked me. I asked a simple question, just asking about, it's a long story, I won't go into it, but I was just asking about an update on some parking tickets because the deadline was coming up, and it was all under their name, and I was asking, what's going on with these parking tickets, upon which they blocked me. And so now I was left here to think, well, what do I think about this, right? And being a fool, I am giving the benefit of the doubt, as I have been for a long time now, where it's like, all these other dots don't line up, and assuming that they did this out of, dislike for me or hate for me, just doesn't add up, and it seems like it's more of a response of being overwhelmed and whatnot. Whether it's, a fair thing to do, no, I don't think it's a fair thing to do at all. But as far as, trying to find some reason and justification, that's all I have. And so despite this, and despite, being treated shittily like this, I'm still being foolishly optimistic. And that isn't like me at all, from previously knowing myself. I don't know why when it comes to these things I am so foolishly optimistic, and always giving the benefit of the doubt, letting myself get punched down repeatedly over and over again until, I don't know, I can't take it anymore, until it builds enough resentment. But the reason why I'm saying this is because this goes against everything that I have previously known about myself, which is that I am extremely nihilistic, extremely realistic with every situation and outcome. And with an outcome like this, I would usually expect myself to be like, okay, well, this is clearly the end of the road, and I don't have any more fight in this situation. I have nothing left, so I might as well just move on. But instead of that, I'm being foolishly optimistic and saying, oh no, it could be for this reason, for that reason, and they'll come back, and blah 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 blah. And so recently this has created a division in myself, a split right down the middle, where I feel like there is a voice in the back of my head telling me what the truth is, what the realistic truth of everything is, because in most situations there is a realistic truth, there is an objective fact to things. You know, if you get given the news that you have cancer, right, there's no way where you can bend that to say, you know, oh, I'm better off with cancer than not with cancer. You know, objectively, having cancer is bad. It will kill you, you know. But despite that, people will say, you know, try and put a positive spin on it. You know, try and be optimistic, try and, you know, have a positive mental attitude. But that is draining. That is draining because the feeling of lying to yourself is draining. The feeling of being toxically positive to yourself is draining. You know, it feels like you're in your own Truman Show where everything around you is fine and dandy, you know, but the reality of the situation is that it's not the case at all, right? And so that's what I'm experiencing now, where I have this voice in the back of my head telling me that I know what the end outcome of this is. Of the end outcome of almost everything, right? You know, I know that if I slack off with my work, I'm gonna fail. I know that if I, you know, take a mental health day, that I'm falling behind. You know, there is an objective reality to everything, and that voice in the back of my head saying these things has never stopped, and it has been ruining me. But how upset can you be at the truth, right? There's nothing you can do about the truth, so why be upset? So at that point, just put a good spin on it, am I right? That's agony. That is the definition of agony for me. That I'm ignoring myself and ignoring the truth for the sake of making up my own fantasy fairyland to live in. I've always been fairly cut and dry with myself and other people. And still, when I do try and find, you know, a positive side to things, it just makes me feel ill. I feel physically ill, like there's a knot in my stomach, because I'm lying to myself. And I know I'm lying to myself. It's like taking drugs to numb yourself, you know. There's a point in abusing any substance where you know you're ruining yourself. It's no longer fun, it's no longer relieving. You're just doing it to be numb to everything. And that's what being toxically positive like that feels like. It feels like you're trying to numb yourself. And in doing that, you feel the negative impacts of doing that to yourself. You know, because it feels like that voice in the back of my head, that's my true self. That is who I am. That is the reality, you know. And so it feels like I'm drowning myself out, you know. It's like if you had a room of people around you, right, and there's an apple on the table, a red apple, and you're saying this is a red apple, and everyone in the room around you is saying that's not a red apple, that's a green apple. Are you going and saying that's a green apple? And you feel like you're losing your mind because you're looking at it, you're like, no, that's a red apple, you know. It feels like I'm lying to myself and going crazy trying to convince myself that things aren't as bad as I think they are, or that any situation isn't as bad as I think it is, right? And so this has just led to a split division down the middle of myself where I want to feel the relief of being positive and being stoic and, you know, not letting things bother me and not letting like these things make me react so much. But I know what the truth is. I know what the reality is. And the reality is that for a lot of these cases, they are negative, and the outcome is negative, whether it has happened or not, right? And so it feels like I'm drowning out who I am. I'm diluting who I am and playing make-believe with myself to comfort myself, lest I go insane. And it's something I've always been aware of. And I have friends who are painfully optimistic about everything, you know. For example, me and my friend, we always watch the upcoming Nintendo Direct every single time it is announced and shows. And every single time I've watched one of these directs, I go in expecting nothing. Expecting nothing that I'm interested in. I'm only interested in a few Nintendo things. Mario, Pikmin, maybe something new that's cool. Every single time without fail I'm disappointed, because there's none of those things. It's more JRPG slop, or, you know, some other random Nindy games, or just, you know, shit you can buy on Steam for $5 that Nintendo has marked up for $50. And every single time after we watch one of these directs, my friend says to me, "Oh, it wasn't that bad. Oh, there was this, and this in it. Yeah, it was good. I like these things. I'm excited for these things." Meanwhile, I'm staring down the barrel of a gun being like, this is terrible. There's nothing here. Right? And that seems to be the common consensus as well, sometimes when I see. And it just feels like I'm going insane. That I can't be optimistic about anything, and when I am optimistic, I feel like I'm lying to myself and I feel sick. And I feel like there is a certain level where you can be realistic and choose how you're going to let that affect you, right? You can look at a situation and be like, this is terrible, but I can't do anything about it, so who cares? And that's, you know, I guess the definition of stoicism. But with stoicism comes the death of passion. And what I mean when I say the death of passion, there is a natural human beauty in the extreme, in extreme passion, in the chase and pursuit of great things. And the way I see it, there is a lot of negligence and blissful ignorance in stoicism. Sure, there is peace, but there's no passion, right? Sure, you can have hobbies and things you're interested in, and you can be passionate about something, but you can't be truly passionate about yourself or anybody else, because in doing that you need to feel agony. Passion, to me, is the pursuit of greatness despite what it will do to you. That is passion, right? And it's such a deeply human emotion and experience that I would feel remiss to not put myself through such a gauntlet for the sake of peace and happiness. Because numbing yourself to the point where you're like a Buddhist monk, numbing yourself to the point of nothing bothers me and I'm at peace, stops you from feeling the full range of greatness that humans are capable of. But in doing that, it's agony. There is a lot of agony that comes with the pursuit of passion. No matter what that passion is, whether that passion is someone, or something, that passion will cause agony. And sometimes it might not be to any means to an end. You might go through this agony and there are no fruits of your labor, right? You might be someone like I am in this very moment, pursuing somebody passionately, knowing damn well that it probably will not end ideally. But to feel such a strong emotion from something, and it's such a strong drive to want something, and to feel the pain and frustration of both failure or success feels so deeply human that that's what purpose feels like. Purpose feels like having the experience that you want to have that means to something to you at any cost. That's why I've always felt such a drive for the things I'm passionate about, and I don't stop until I achieve it, or it becomes so impossibly unobtainable that that there is no amount of trying that I'm knowledgeable of that would, help me reach such a goal. This computer, for example, is a great example of that. I've been trying to I finally have it consistently working now, but for 5 months, it took me 5 months of troubleshooting, of replacing parts, reinstalling operating systems more times than I could count, until I finally found the root problem, which was the hard drive failing, that I was able to finally get everything working. And it took several months, many laborious hours, and many hours sat in front of this screen, often it projecting a blue, crash screen of words and numbers I don't understand, and all I'm left with is, okay, well maybe I'll try the next thing. And it's always about the next thing. What is next, Passion is about what is next. If something works, then what is next? If something doesn't work, what is next? And in doing next, that next could hold pain. That next can hold agony and suffering and a longing or yearning or any range of emotion attached to it, whether it be positive or negative. But next is what we were meant for. It's what I was meant for. I'm not meant for stagnation. I'm meant for greatness. Everybody's meant for greatness. But some people are content with numbness. Many people are content with numbness. With simple pleasures and a simple idea of drive and determination. Or maybe somebody else's idealistic goal of drive and determination that they projected onto themselves. You see this in people. In high school, you see this in the kids that want to go off and study law or medicine. Most of them are doing it because they don't want to be in the shadow of their parents, or because they want to live up to somebody else's expectation. I very rarely see people going into law or medicine and them doing it out of passion. Almost always it's out of fear. And I don't want to live in fear. I won't allow it. Fear sure can be a good motivator within your passion, but for most people it's the main drive. And that's why I feel so isolated, because I feel like I'm surrounded by people that only care about numbing themselves. When's the next time I can numb myself? Or they're so blissfully ignorant that they aren't even aware that they're doing it. You have people that are blatantly doing it, whether they're abusing substances, and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I do this as well. Whether it's abusing substances. Apologies, the the tape ran out. If anybody curious, these are the tapes I use. I don't know if that's backwards or not, but these are Sony mini DV 60-minute tapes. And I'll put that there as a little set piece going forward. And so, as I was saying, people numb themselves with simple pleasures, or they numb themselves within the idea of a career, right? With the idea of, oh, I'm gonna, do an apprenticeship, or I'm gonna, work on my dad's farm, or I'm gonna go into engineering, or whatever, because they think that's what they have to do. There is no alternative perspectives being brought up within people. There is no search for greater things. There is complacency. There is a blissfully ignorant complacency common in so many people. And there are very few people that you see trying to strive for greatness, or a stronger connection, or a pursuit of a pure passion. And that's why I feel so isolated and alone, because I feel like I'm surrounded by people who are so content with being stagnant. Also, I realized our visual aid isn't playing here. There we go. So content with being stagnant, right? And so I feel alone. I feel alone in this way of thinking, where I feel so strongly about these things, where I feel like I'm the only one that knows the truth, that I'm the only one aware of the objective reality of things. Everybody else around me is saying, oh no, it's like, it's fine, everything is fine. You see that in, global politics and shit like that now. It's like, oh, everything is fine, stop complaining, People are only starting to wake up to that now, but in the aspects of oneself, it feels very isolating to know what everything is, to see everything for what it is, without numbing myself to be able to get through these things. I feel like I'm the only one crazy enough, at least that I have met, to be willing to take on such pain of knowing, and the pain of knowledge, and the pursuit of something greater than that. And this is not me trying to say I'm better than anybody. I don't think I'm better than anybody. I know I'm not better than anybody, right? I'm fully aware of that. I'm no better than my neighbor or anybody else. I'm just venting my frustrations of how my brain makes me feel. And not that I'm comparing myself to these people, but you often hear, tales of philosophers that most of them end up killing themselves. Most of them end up killing themselves because the feeling of knowledge is too heavy. The feeling of truth is too heavy, it's too foreboding. It becomes too much of a nihilistic weight when you start trying to so heavily search for meaning and purpose. What you end up finding is that there is none. There is none. And it's up to you to figure that out. And for these people, like these philosophers, their purpose was to come to that end. That not the end of killing themselves, but the purpose of finding that out. Finding out that there is no purpose. Taking the long road roundabout way to realize that there is no purpose. And when your life's purpose has been to discover that there is none, and that everything you know now is the truth and what is, that's what makes you want to kill yourself. That's what makes you want to disappear. And I feel like, in a sense, I'm in a similar boat, where I feel like I'm aware of the truth and what is, and the reality of situations. And I'm crazy enough to not numb myself of that fact. Because numbing yourself takes away your humanity. And numbing, like choosing to not numb yourself and to instead distract yourself, is just to lie to yourself of what the truth is. And I'm no liar, and especially to myself. And I feel like I would go insane if I kept doing that. I'd rather go insane knowing everything than to go insane lying to myself and depriving myself of what the truth of a matter is and the reality of it. And so this is why I'm conflicted. I feel like I'm split in two because I want to... If I had the option of being another cog in the machine and just being numb and blissfully ignorant of everything, I would take it in a heartbeat. Because those people are happy. For the most part. Living the way I am now, where I overthink every minute detail of my life obsessively, and look at every situation and every challenge in my life 15 million steps ahead, right? It's draining. It's agony. And it's the truth of my life. Obviously you can't say that you know the future for sure, right? But humans have gone pretty damn good at predicting it. They've gone pretty damn good at having a solid guess at what's going to happen. And call it pattern recognition, call it whatever you want. You can even call it superstition. But even you know with yourself what is the likely outcome of everything you do. Sure, some things are up to a coin toss, but you're pretty confident of most of the things that will happen. If you stay up late, you know that the next day you will be tired. And that's just one of a million examples, right, of what could happen. And another example of, a prediction, a solid guess of the future. And that's all I'm doing. I'm solidly guessing, making solid predictions about everything that may or may not happen, so I can mold and, manipulate my life to make it as least resistant as possible. And so in doing that, I'm split in two. I'm split in two because I wish I was numb. I wish I didn't have to think. And I'm not entirely angry at myself. Because there is a certain pride that can come with being knowledgeable, being insightful of oneself and others. It's like you see people online talking about this where they say, oh, I feel like I'm awake. I feel like I'm awake and everybody else is an NPC roaming about. I feel like I'm awake. And if you're watching this, likely you do too. And it feels like I'm a minority within this pattern of thinking. Because it's not for the weak-hearted. This way of living is ultimately agonizing. Not 24/7, of course. Life naturally has its distractions. I still spend time with friends and have a great time and forget about everything I'm currently thinking because I'm living in that moment. And that's great. Those are the few times where I can feel normal, like everybody else, when I'm with people. But when I'm by myself, or when I'm listening to other people, or I'm just observing, it feels like I'm going crazy. Even when I'm having conversations with people, and you might feel this sometimes too. You're having a conversation with someone and you think, how can this person be so fucking stupid? How can this person be so insular in their thought process? So neglectful of having any other sort of perspective. And being so blissfully ignorant that there could be another perspective. Some people think just that the way that they think is right. And I know that I could be completely wrong. I could just be a nutcase, right? All I'm saying now is what I'm observing and how I feel. And by God, do I hope I'm wrong. Because if this is it, if this is my life and what it is, then oh boy. Now I understand that I've come off pretty negative, pretty spiteful in how I've been talking. I understand that. And it's not all doom and gloom. It's not all doom and gloom. I understand that there are positives to this way of thinking. I've been told by many people that I'm either very emotionally intelligent or intelligent, or however way you want to twist that. And there is a level of pride that comes with that, And there's also a level of self-pride that comes with that. But at the end of the day, that does only go so far. When it's just me in my room, by myself, left by myself with my thoughts, it can get nasty. Or it can get healthy. There's no cut and dry way of, knowing the outcome of my own mood or how thinking like this will affect me. And I know that that I should be in therapy because I understand myself. I just don't have the necessary methods or strategies of regulating myself, because it feels at the moment, it feels like one day I could be so fine and be like, you know what, I'm in charge of my own life, I'm going to do what I want, and I'm not going to let anybody get in my way, and I feel passionate, I feel full of vigor and determination, right? And with that comes a strong feeling of just happiness and drive. And then the next day, I might be paralyzed, sitting at the edge of my bed with my head in my hands, feeling like, what am I going to do with myself? Or like overthinking what someone, might have said, or what I might have said, or my actions, or every action I've had up until thus point, and how that has affected an outcome. There's no middle ground consistency for myself. And I'm trying to change the script on that. I'm trying to change the narrative and be like, okay, I'm going to try and self-regulate, and I'm going to try and be more consistently driven and passionate and not overthink as much. And that's and this is part of it. You being here with me is part of that regulation. I don't like to journal because I find it boring. I find writing and journaling, to me it feels cringy. It feels like I'm in a ABC3 teen kids movie. And I'm not shitting on anybody who does that. That's just how that makes me personally feel. I don't like having my thoughts and feelings in a book that anybody could pick up and read. That's why I record these on tape. Nobody in this house would know how to turn on this camera and put in a tape and get it working. And nobody in my life knows about the YouTube channel that I'm putting these on. It's a fail-safe so that I can keep being treated normally by the people around me. So yeah, that making these videos is my way of journaling, is my way of venting and talking through my own self and through my own problems, so that I can find either some form of resolution or comfort or understanding or yada yada yada. And so far, it's been helpful. It's been helpful, which is why I keep making these. And so, as time continues, I'm trying to be more optimistic without losing myself. Optimistic while knowing the truth. It's less optimism and more irresponsible drive. Irresponsibly driving myself to continue doing the things that I know will hurt me, but will ultimately keep me human and keep me sane. Continue to drive myself through my passions. Whether that passion is someone or something. And that's what makes the greatest people, I believe. Is the ones that can drive themselves through their passion no matter how much it pains them. And I've always wanted to be the greatest. I don't think I will be. I don't think I'll be the greatest at anything. Because that's, it's a very lucky, run of the draw sort of thing now. All I can do at the moment is be my own greatness. Live up to my own expectations of greatness. A lot of people would say that's fame or money. For me, I just want fulfillment and security. And I don't have a whole lot of both at the moment. So I got a long way to go. Anyway, I realized the visual aid is finished. And with that, I will conclude this episode. Thank you all for joining me today. Next episode, I will try and put up some different visual aid. Oop, there goes that little set piece. I was thinking maybe a different game. I might do some more Minecraft. I'm not too sure. I know Minecraft can be pretty entertaining to watch. I've been having fun playing on this world. I haven't played in a bit, so it might be fun to get back into it. Anyway, with that, thank you for listening to my ramblings if you have. And I know things got a little bit derailed today. But I think that's important. I think it's good to get out a little bit of that. It's not an entire reflection of who I am. I know within myself that I'm very sane and reasonable. How I may come off or how I may portray myself may not reflect that, but I'm aware of who I am. I know to you I'm just a crazy person in a wizard costume in front of an old computer. And I want to keep it that way. Because as being Rory Excalibur means I can take a break from being Rory. And that's a gift. So anyway, I'll see you on the next episode. Onwards and upwards.